let's talk about why it's important to have a tuned set of arrows. You know, sometimes there is that confusion with primitive archery that they think that we're not shooting tuned sets of arrows just because, you know, we're using natural materials and, you know, things may not weigh the same or anything. And I talked about it in a different video about primitive archery not being about matching things, but they do need to be tuned, and there's no doubt about it. And there's a reason that that's so important, and obviously it's accuracy more than anything. I mean, you want your arrows to fly perfectly straight, you know, but some people would say, well, if the point hits where it's supposed to on the target, it doesn't matter what the arrow looked like going down the range, providing that the point's stuck in the right spot. And see, I kind of felt that way too several years ago. You know, kind of when I was a young teenager, me and my dad would shoot in the backyard, and we'd kind of make some of our own arrows and things, and we'd shoot them, and they would fishtail and whatnot, but the point would hit where it was supposed to, and we just thought, well, you know, that's good enough. The point got where it was supposed to, and it hit where it was supposed to, so that's all that really mattered. You know, we didn't really understand things back then, you know, until you kind of get a little more experience and learn why it's so important. And of course it's about accuracy, but more than anything it's important when you're hunting. I mean, you can shoot at a target all day and your arrows can whip around and it's not hurting anything. But when you're in a real hunting situation, your arrows need to fly absolutely perfectly straight, and there can be no variance on that. They can't fly stiff spine, you know, at a slight angle the whole way down and then hit, you know, basically where, you know, the nock end is kicking left, or, you know, left-handed archer nock end kicks right. And it can't be a weak spine shaft where they're really whipping around and kind of hitting erratically, that kind of thing. And they can't just fishtail the whole way down and that kind of thing, and porpoising, because why that is so important is every time that arrow fishtails, it's losing energy. I mean, there's wind drag on that. You're killing the aerodynamics of it, and it is taking a lot of energy out of the arrow itself. But the real reason is when you hit the animal, that arrow needs to have all its energy focused directly on that point, with all the momentum of that arrow pushing straight into it. If it's off to the side, when the point hits, instead of all that energy being focused to drive that point home, it wants to carry the rest of that arrow around to the side. Now, obviously when you hit it and the point sticks, it's not like it's turning and hitting the arrow sideways against the target. You know, we don't see that because the point sticks. But it's not getting near the penetration when it hits off to the side. So when you're getting that knock left, you know, shooting a heavy spine, and it's almost looking like it's flying down there slightly sideways, and although the point might hit, all the energy of the shaft is being dispersed basically through the air as it comes to rest at more of a sideways configuration, you know. And same with the fishtailing. I mean, you don't know where it's going to go. But that's why it's so important, because it really does hurt your penetration, and a lot of people don't really understand that, and they just think as long as the point gets there, that's the important part, and it's not true. You know, it all comes down to penetration. I mean, if you want to do your own penetration test, and I know foam is not a good medium for testing penetration compared to like an animal, because there is a lot of variables in an animal, but just penetration in general. If you get a solid block, you know, solid foam target or ballistics gel or something, something that hasn't already had a bunch of holes in it, and you shoot an arrow that flies perfectly straight, it's going to penetrate better than an arrow that, you know, weighs the same and all the other variables the same. But an arrow that fishtails around is not going to penetrate nearly as deep. And an arrow that flies erratic or fishtails or porpoises or whatever compared to one that flies perfectly straight, that can be the difference between a successfully and ethically harvested animal compared to a deer that's wounded, you know, with very minimal penetration, you know, or one that perhaps you only got a one lung hit on as opposed to a double lung. So that's why it is so important that you have perfectly tuned arrows that fly absolutely straight. You know, they do not fishtail or, you know, kick the nock ends out in any direction.